Electric bikes are supposed to make life easier, but a lot of them still come with trade-offs. Too big to store, too heavy to transport, too complicated to adjust for different size of riders. That's where small folding bikes with 20-inch fat tires step in. They're compact, stable, easy to handle, and surprisingly capable when you need them to be. This is the Dachshund Pro from Puckipuppy, a folding e-bike built around the idea that riding shouldn't feel like a project. It should just work. So today, I'm going to take a closer look at what happens when portability, stability, and simplicity all come together in a small package. I always have concerns of companies being a fly-by-night setup when they have odd choice of brand names like Puckipuppy, but it appears they're setting their roots pretty deep and doubling down on their four-legged companion naming convention. The Dachshund Pro comes in at $1,200 at the time of recording. This is a $200 upgrade over the base model, and for that money, you get a significantly more powerful motor, rear suspension, combination torque, cadence sensor, and an extra speed on the cassette. Both bikes are 48-volt systems with 15 amp-hour internal removable batteries. In all my years of testing e-bikes, I've never seen any other brand offer this sale, and I don't know if it's temporary, but at least for the past year, anytime you purchase one of their bikes, at the time of checkout you have the option to add an additional battery for only $100. This is absolutely worth it, and if you ever decide to go with one of Puckipuppy's bikes, get the extra battery. You will never find an extra e-bike battery for $100, and this doubles your range. What the hell is this? Both the base and Pro model of the Dachshund are IPX6 water resistant. This means you don't have to worry about getting them wet. You can wash them down with the hose when they get dirty or ride them through the rain. You just don't want to fully submerge the bike. They also both carry a corrosion resistant chain, which is nice for humid environments. When it comes to balancing comfort, convenience, and utility into a well-rounded bike, these small folders are my favorite styles to use. But there are a few areas of this particular bike that I would like to see improved. A minor inconvenience to most, but something that does get a little more annoying the more you use it. I've encountered this exact heads-up display on other e-bikes, even from different companies, and it would be one of the first things I would upgrade. It's hard to see in direct sunlight, it has no USB charge port, and for some reason takes a really long time to activate. From the moment you push the power button to the moment you can use the bike's motor, it actually takes longer than inserting the key, starting the motor, and taking off on my dual sport. Next, I'd like to talk about their internal removable battery because it's actually the only other area on this bike where I do have some concerns. Now, luckily, it's a really easy fix, but unfortunately for anybody who doesn't see this video, I doubt any other reviewers are going to point this out. That's not to say any other reviewers would try to hide this. I legitimately think a lot of people don't realize how big of a deal this is. Anytime you mount a battery in the frame, it needs to be very secure. Because if it is not a snug fit, it'll rattle around and sound like this. And would you like to know what this sound leads to after about 100 miles? It leads to this. The fitment of the internal booster pack is also an issue, a pretty big one too, as it's already broken the mounting plate for the battery itself, causing it to rattle around inside the frame. A busted battery casing. And that has the potential of having disastrous results if left unchecked. To be clear, the damaged battery you were just looking at is not from the Dachshund, it's from my Ingwe X26. After a few months of testing, I didn't realize how important it was to address this issue, so I urge anyone with internally mounted frame batteries to make sure they are snug and secure. To fix it, I just wrapped a few layers of electrical tape around the front and back of my battery, and now the bike went from sounding like this to sounding like this. If you're willing to overlook the annoying display and deal with the battery clearance issue, the Dachshund Pro is actually a great bike. Compact bikes that comfortably fit tall riders are a bit of a mystical creature in the cycling world, but this is by far the most rider-compliant bike I've ever tested. It can fit short riders no problem, but it has so much adjustment, I can absolutely get my reach right where I want it, with plenty of room to spare. To take this a step further, these bikes with short wheelbases and adjustable stems are really easy and comfortable to stand up on for extended periods of time. You can treat them like a big scooter. This is nice if you're just tired of sitting on long rides, or if you need to see over obstacles and vehicles. Another reason why this feels so natural on the Dachshund is because of its choice of 20-inch wheels. This gives you a lower center of gravity and makes the general ride more stable, but you really notice it when you're standing up.
I just realized, since the left mirror is the most important one, it's the one we use all the time, and a lot of times I'll just put the left mirror on. But since I have the right mirror, and this bike is really easy and comfortable to stand up on, I adjusted the right mirror so that when I'm standing up on the pedals, I can see what's behind me. Now, you guys won't be able to see because it's not lined up with you, but when I stand up, I can still see what's coming up behind me. Wish I'd have thought of that sooner.
Regardless of wheel size, most consumer e-bikes have a top speed limit around 28 miles an hour for legal reasons. They'll reach that speed and then the power will gradually shut off. So in this situation, the 20-inch wheels have a great advantage. More torque without giving anything up. They'll still reach their 28 miles an hour top speed, they'll just get there faster than a bike with the same power motor but bigger wheels. The small wheels are generally more maneuverable, so this is great for city traffic, especially when you combine them with the short wheelbase. This bike is really easy to whip around corners. And you can't overlook convenience. Being lighter and smaller makes them significantly easier to mount and dismount should you need to do repairs or fix a flat. I'm actually just now realizing there's a lot of advantage of having smaller wheels. Any wheel of equal construction quality, the smaller ones will be stronger, just due to mechanical leverage. And the lack of mechanical leverage means your braking system doesn't have to work as hard, heat up as fast, or wear down the pads as quickly. In fact, every bike I've ever tested with 20-inch wheels always feels like it has amazing brakes. Alright, let's move on to some of the other features on the bike in no particular order. It's got a nice wide rear rack, but you'll probably want to stick with panniers because this being a full suspension bike, if you put something too tall on top of the rack, you'll just smack into it with the seat.
I stopped at this little, well, not little, pretty big old vintage store. I guess they just opened up a couple months ago. I didn't even know they were here. Just happened to look this way and see it said vintage on the side of the building. So for the heck of it, I got a little tin for my girl's cat treats. I'm sure she'll get a kick out of that. And then this old tin for Hershey Kisses. I'm put it on the coffee table with a bunch of Hershey Kisses on it.
Not shown here in the video because I forgot to record them because, well, every bike I've gotten from Puckipuppy so far has included all this, but you get a generous amount of accessories and spare parts from this company with any bike you order. Just off the top of my head, you get spare nuts, spare bolts, a spare set of brake pads, a waterproof bike cover, a bike lock, a water bottle holder, a phone holder. Phone holder is really nice. It's actually all metal. And my favorite, by far, these mirrors. And these make riding down the shoulder or side of the road so much more peaceful. The peace of mind you get being able to see anything coming up is really good. They're fully adjustable, they don't feel like cheap garbage, and they won't move around under rough riding conditions once you tighten them down. They'll of course move if you bump them into something, but then you can just adjust them back to where they were. The seat appears to be the same model they use on most of their bikes. That's not a complaint. I actually like this seat. It's pretty comfortable. We have ribbed rubber lock-on grips. These are very easy to adjust, but when you lock them down, they do not move. It does feel like the type of rubber that starts to deteriorate after a year or two, but while it's in good condition, it's very comfortable. We have a textured thumb throttle, which is nice for holding a precise speed under bumpy conditions, and we also have cruise control if you don't want to bother with it. The cruise control is activated by holding down the minus button on the keypad, and that keypad by default is located on the same side of the handlebars as the thumb throttle, making it almost impossible to use the cruise control. So like with their past bikes, I had to move it to the right side and flip it upside down so the wire would come out the left. This isn't really a big deal. It was a quick 5-minute job, but it would have been nice if it was done out of the factory. Front and rear plastic fenders to keep you nice and dry and clean. I do prefer plastic over metal as they can handle fatigue and vibrations a lot better. An area on e-bikes that gets overlooked quite often for obvious reasons is cadence matching, especially on bikes with smaller tires. Thankfully, they've thought of this and compensated by giving a very wide chainring on the crankset. They've matched it up to 8 speeds in the rear, and this allows you to pedal comfortably well past 20 miles an hour without wasting strokes. I did have an issue during my first few test rides where when I would ride around in 8th gear, the chain would jump off of the chainring. I assumed it was because the bike has a short wheelbase and 8th gear causes the chain line to be really far off center, but when I tried to get it to repeat it for the video, it just wouldn't do it anymore, and in fact has stopped doing it for weeks, so I'll just call it a break-in issue. Nothing on the Dachshund Pro looks like it's built poorly, and in fact, the full suspension is more than capable of carrying a full-grown adult down light trails at moderate speeds. But if you give this bike to a reckless teenager, they absolutely will destroy it. The last feature I'd like to point out is the fact that it uses a cadence and torque sensor combined. This is tuned in such a way to make pedaling feel as natural as possible, very responsive, and hold power during gear shifts. This is one of those things that a new rider will probably take for granted immediately because it feels natural, but you can only really appreciate if you've ridden older bikes that only had a cadence sensor or only had a torque sensor. A properly tuned torque and cadence sensor combination like what we have on the Dachshund Pro makes the bike feel more like a true extension of your legs because you're no longer trying to compensate for input lag or lose power during gear shifts. I've had kind of a subconscious checklist for things I'd like to see on entry-level e-bikes, and 2 of them have been checked off. Every bike should include hydraulic disc brakes. That's pretty much a given nowadays, and only the absolute cheapest will neglect this. Bikes should also include a torque and cadence sensor combination like we have here with a good tune so the bike is no longer a laggy mess. The last one I've yet to see, but I think will soon happen, and that would be rebound in every front fork. As it sits, most bikes, even in much higher price brackets, still do not include rebound in their front forks, this being one of them. So eventually that should get checked off, but for now we still have to deal with it. Anyways, I hope you guys got some useful information out of today's video, or at the very least were mildly entertained. And until next time, ride safe.